So, yeah, first of all, very much thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the nice introduction. My name is Jonna. Koivisto. I come from the University of Hamari, as you can see from here. We work there with Juho in the game research lab and have been working a lot on gamification, game research. A lot from this information systems perspective, as you kind of mentioned there before, and Andreas was very much correct. That's a lot of our kind of like distribution work that does a lot of the number stuff and a lot of the analysis. I'm the one doing basic work there behind and writing out the stuff and so. But
numbers are easier usually.
Sorry.
Numbers are usually easier.
That's true. You're the easy part. But Juho was talking about the structural equation modeling, which is definitely the survey studies and the SEM analysis. Those have been our kind of like main method, I would say. But another thing that we have been doing a lot is the reviews. We have been conducting quite a lot of these reviews in these new fields lately. And what we consider, we have developed kind of nice method for doing them, and well, yeah, based on the interest that the papers have gained, I assume it's going nicely, and they make systematic reviews. So in that sense, yes, definitely we're happy to talk about this. I didn't draft much of a title for my talk myself, but then maybe Andreas or I don't know who had added this kind of nice subtitle, so I put it here, so literature reviews on game and play, getting back to framing the field. What I will be mostly talking about is the process, how we do it, and then showing examples from our work. But of course that's basically what the reviews are, getting facts straight and framing the field. Yes, so now I'm checking the time to know like at what time I started so that I can somehow control. Last time I was talking about literature reviews, it was for 8 hours in Italy to PhD students, but that included some workshopping. So like I can hopefully squeeze this into the hour and get the point transferred to you. So let's get started with the thing. The review that Andreas mentioned in his introduction. The one that was basically one of the first and has gained quite a nice, well, it has been welcomed well, to say it like that. In 2013, we started looking at the literature published on gamification, and mainly empirical literature at that point, because there absolutely was not anything that would be kind of like drawing together all that literature. And so we decided to take a look at that and published in the Hawaii International Conference on System Sciences in 2014. And since then it has been doing quite nicely. Last week I checked, it had, well, it was 470 citations in Google Scholar. So for a literature review in this kind of minor thing, it's quite nicely. So just to kind of give you an idea, we will go through the process, how we conduct this, but just to give you an idea what this kind of like look like. Let's see, I'm sorry I have to do a bit of this jumping also, and it always goes through the blue screen, but I think we can live with that. No, not that, here. So just to give you an idea, in this paper, for example, we looked at simply studies on gamification, where they said that yes, we're studying gamification, they had done something empirical. And well, this was published in 2014. What is interesting, that at that point there were 24, do I remember correctly? I think I do, 24, I need to check it still from
that was how many were included at the end of the...
Yeah, 24 empirical studies that we finally only like reviewed, because there really wasn't much literature at that point. So as Andreas was also pointing out, it's a very new field. or kind of like very much in development, very new thing that everyone seems to be interested in. Everyone wants to know, like, what is this thing and does it work? We want to put gamification, game elements to everything, but nobody actually knows does it work. So we were the first ones to somehow try to draw together the studies that exist. And that's what we did here. And kind of the end result, what our paper looks like and what I will be now delivering to you is that what we do is very systematic. Try to very systematically go through the papers. We have nice this kind of matrix style matrix for that with different kind of analysis, and the end result is very easily crafted in this kind of a systematic analysis in this type of tables that we then, in which we kind of quite nicely can sum up the information and then in the text analyze further and somehow synthesize what is said in the papers. So that is just to, at this point, just to give you an idea of what kind of end result we're talking about here.
Yeah, maybe I'd just like to point out maybe here that, so this was like the first review we did.
Yes.
The example, I think we've sort of progressed quite far from this, and this was done in the bounds of 10 pages, which was the maximum limit.
Yes,
paper limit
that's
in this
true also.
format. With all the references, it's very little.
Yeah.
Can you give an operational definition of gamification?
Sorry?
Can you operationalize gamification before we dive into it?
How would I operationalize gamification? That's it. We had a short talk about this. That you had a very maybe critical view about gamification. Well, how we see gamification is that basically it's adding affordances that like elements often known from games. That's a bit of a hazy part. What is actually elements from games and so on, but affordances that seek to create similar experiences that games do in another context, and in order, those are implemented in order to create some outcomes, motivation, intrinsic motivation, whatever. So basically like adding affordances to create some kind of outcomes. You want to add something?
And I think one reason, one sort of idea behind your question probably was also like, how do we then scope the review, right? So
yeah.
we don't take a stance of what gamification is necessarily in scoping of the study, because we search for papers that sort of frame themselves as, being part of the gamification literature.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. That's a good point. Like in this we did not. We did not have a kind of like perspective. We will only look at studies that define it in this way, because we're talking about such a new phenomenon, such a new field, that if we did that, well, okay, there are most studies probably citing the most well-known definition of gamification, sure, but still, that would, in this sense, in this context, I think it would not be the best way to approach it, because it's still so much in development.
Yeah, it would also be very difficult since the definition is pretty hazy, and it can include such a vast amount of first the technologies and also a vast amount of different psychological things that go into that might be relevant. So it's also like it's convenient for us to scope the study in this way, but it's also pretty relevant for the readers, and it's also like the only feasible way that we see we can actually do this in this area.
Talking about gamification, it could make for another hour or another day, or at least the 8 hours, but maybe I try to stay out of that.
But I could say maybe one more point.
Okay.
If it's okay. Like, for instance, if there's a debate whether game, like just research looking at, for example, effects of games on people, it's debatable whether that's also gamification research or not. So if we also included all of that, it would be very difficult to find it, just all the literature that is
And I will later show examples from a current review. Well, in this one, the end result was 24 empirical papers. We are kind of doing a rerun on this, so now it's a lot more. And if in that case we would also include different kind of ways of considering gamification, we consider many, but like if we would have more like restricted view in the beginning, then it could get very challenging. But I'll show you in a moment. But to get forward, we have also done reviews, for example, on persuasive technologies, very similar format. I'm not showing that paper at the moment. But then one that is more recent and very interesting one, for example, from this year, again published in the Hawaii International Conference of System Sciences, gamification in crowdsourcing. And in this one, for example, let's see if I, again, sorry for the blue screen, we can jump to this one. In this one, we had a very interesting approach in the sense that we took this way crowdsourcing systems have been categorized commonly, and then we looked at how gamification has been implemented in those different types of crowdsourcing systems, and we got very interesting results from that. How different kind of crowdsourcing systems seem to use different kinds of gamification. But again, like the system is very similar. That we have crafted kind of like tables to systematically analyze the data, which in this case is the papers, the empirical studies, and then we can present this information in a quite lean way, and apparently, again, like said, it seems to resonate with people, and our reviews seem to be gaining readers.
Can you just say a little bit about the, you're sort of showing by those tables so fast it's hard to...
Yeah, I know, yeah, but it's just,
Is there...
it's an introduction.
no, I understand.
Yeah.
But I mean, just for any one of these, so like, just pick badges and achievements. How do you decide whether or not it works for processing? So there are 3 studies that address it.
Well, we have, yes, we have...
What happens next?
We have looked at, okay, like, first of all, how many studies, for example, in this type of studies which studied research papers that studied certain type of crowdsourcing system, for example, processing, and how many of those included batches in the system, yeah? And then we have looked also at the results, like what kind of results the studies report, and if they report specifically, for example, okay, they tested in for example in a controlled way that okay, the batches lead to this kind of result and so on. So it's not, that information is not in this table.
So
yeah, this is only about the affordances. Let's see, do we have the there we have the results. But did we have the more, or was it so that that table is actually coming to the journal version? Was it so? It could be that it's not here, but we have done those analyses also.
Yeah,
Again, this is the limited conference version. So.
But one of the, and I think you will touch this topic probably very soon, I'm not sure if
Yeah.
I should talk about it, but one of the real hurdles here is that a lot of the empirical studies just do so different kinds of work. It's very, very difficult or even almost impossible many times to really compare them in a meaningful way. So we have to sort of converge on some abstraction level of what the finding really tells us for the sake of the review. So we sort of look at whether it's like whether if it's a say quantitative study, we look at the different sort of effects they have there and stuff, and then look at whether they sort of find like full positive results or full negative results, or if there's like a mixed sort of a degree of different kinds of results, then we sort of codify that as sort of mixed results kind of thing, and then also like null results and so forth.
I will get to that more later.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, sure, of course. And just again, as an introduction, I had here a few other papers that are by Juho and his colleagues. For example, why do people buy virtual goods? Why do people play games? So very much like in all kinds of context in this game research field, we have looked upon what other researchers have actually said about this. And like was mentioned before, that there are often this like idea, okay, this study gave this kind of results, so okay, we believe in that, but then again, we should be looking what the how do I say, the mass of the body of literature actually concludes about certain things before we are too certain about the results. And then again, like in addition to those, we have several at the moment forthcoming. So I will be actually showing you examples from one of these. But these examples have been a lot. We have crafted a paper like simply as a review. But of course, this process is something that is important in any kind of research. You need to always look at research, prior research related to what you are studying. So of course, the same process can be used for whichever type of study when you need to review literature. This is from one of our papers where we looked at exercise, use of games in exercise, gamification in exercise, and included this kind of a review section to our paper. Okay, so basically with this presentation I want to give to you, well, somehow what is our perspective on doing these reviews, why we are doing them, also give you the process and some examples. And I would say that especially those who are students here, like doing your PhD studies or studying them or whatever, this is in my opinion, this is very relevant. Of course there are more senior people here, more senior researchers who might have a lot more to contribute on this. Again, I welcome all comments at any point and questions. And also I would say that for any kind of like industry field, of course this kind of systematic process of looking at what actually research tells us about some specific problem in any situation, this type of work is quite relevant. So of course this is kind of the trivial part in the sense that we mostly know why we're doing this, but with a systematic review, the aim is of course that we see what research on the large, what the body of research is saying about a specific well-defined problem or certain scope. That is the ideal situation, I would say, that you have a well-defined problem that you're looking at, what you try to find research on. And the goal is organizing, summarizing, synthesizing information results regarding the problem topic. We were just talking here that sometimes the reviews that students do there, this kind of laundry list that simply this person says this and that, this person says this and that, which doesn't really make much of a review in the sense that it lists what certain people have said about something, but it doesn't actually create any kind of a summary or synthesis what we actually know about a certain problem. And as was said in the title that was given to me, basically, yes, the goal is to make sense of the field somehow. For us, it was, for example, with the gamification paper, nobody had looked at that research before in that scale or in that way. There were a lot of this like industry interest, researcher interest on the topic. Everyone was asking the question that does it work? Is there any sense to this gamification that everyone seems to be talking about? So we were the first ones to point it, okay, this is clearly something where this kind of a summarizing, synthesizing work would be beneficial, so we took on the task. And also like finding patterns between studies. What we did, that we aimed very specifically that we want to look at how gamification is being used. So what kind of implementations are studied in those research papers? So finding patterns, how is it done? How is gamification done? And then of course, for example, the point of doing literature reviews, identifying gaps. So what is there missing from what we know? And identifying gaps in what we know, and also like, for example, if in the research as such there is some kind of a problem that seems to what's the word, repeat, like there is often some problem found, for example. And how we have approached this, well, we targeted this very specific question that nobody had looked at, for example, and we had the goal, like I said, finding patterns. How is it being done? In what context, for example? There were like people from different fields interested in gamification. So, okay, from what context do we actually have some information? And for what kind of tasks has gamification been used? But also then we pointed out a lot of these methodological problems. And this is something that Juho kind of referred to just in his comment, that with the studies in this field, for example, and in many of the technical fields, let's put it a bit more widely, there is sometimes, there is quite often like different kind of scales used for measuring something. There is not coherence so that you could easily look at, okay, these studies all have used the same scale for measuring this thing, so we can trust that when we look at these, we get the idea that, okay, based on this kind of theoretical or methodological setting, we get these results and we can count on that. It doesn't go that well. So often researchers use very different kinds of scales and ways of measuring things, and the results tend to be quite varied in that way. Or the studies tend to be very varied, and then the results, of course, you can't so confidently rely on the results as like from the whole body of research. So we paid a lot of attention, for example, to the shortcomings in the literature. Noted many of those, lack of control experiments, for example, which would be very valuable for gamification. Very short time frames in the study, small samples, and so on. And luckily, after our review, there has been research papers where they have explicitly noted that we have tried to pay attention to these shortcomings that Hamari et al. Pointed in their review. So we have maybe somehow affected the course of research in the field.
I hope so.
Yeah, we hope so. So this is basically why we're looking at this stuff. To go through the process, which again, like yes, this can be very trivial, and one can consider, yeah, okay, you just look at the papers, you write the results. That's easily how you end up with the laundry list. So basically, how we do the process is what I'm going to talk about, and try to give examples as much as possible so that you can grasp kind of the way how we aim to be very systematic in this. We start, of course, with the planning phase, so that you plan your review, then how you actually conduct it, how you get the data for yourself. Then there are two phases of analysis, author-centric and concept-centric analysis, and then of course writing up the results. And then you should have a nice full paper. We're not aiming for that in this one, even though I might make you, with me, think about how to search for something. So, to start with the review, to start with the planning. First of all, of course, you need to have some kind of motivation why I'm doing this. For any kind of work or research, you should have some kind of motivation why you're doing this. And also, even though we're talking about a review, be it a review paper or simply a review for some other kind of research work, I consider that for each kind of a task, it's each task of this type, you should have a research question. And the reason why I highlight these is that planning well your review process and your review in advance, it's the key to being systematic. And doing reviews is very time consuming. It can be, like if you're aiming for the laundry list, it can be very fast. That can be done easily and fast. But for example, currently I have been working on a very large scale review that I will show you in a minute, a little bit. I have been working on it for a year because it's a lot of work. And to somehow ease you with that work, to make it easier, planning well in advance, like being as clear as possible about what you are looking at. What is your motivation for the work? Why you're doing it? What is it that you're looking for? And also a research question. That's the most important thing almost. And yeah, okay, I think I'll say those few things in a moment. Oh, so for example, here are two text excerpts from our papers, both of them from the DOS gamification work paper. So we have considered why are we doing this review? What is the motivation for this? And as we have written out, yes, there's a lot of interest on the topic. There's a lot of people from different directions, industry, academia, everyone asking like, so does this work? What's the point in this? Should we implement gamification to our millions of dollars business? Is this the way to go? How we engage our customers or our employees or whatever? So that's our motivation, that we wanted to offer something for both the academia and the industry, some kind of a summary. What does the research say at the moment? And then also, okay, in the paper, we didn't define that, okay, we will look at the research question, does gamification work? Well, it was already in the title, so kind of giving a hint to people that is what we're looking at. But it was kind of this implicit question all the time with the work that is what we're trying to find out, does gamification work? So, motivation, very well, consider from the beginning and defining a research question. But regarding the planning, if you're doing research, considering your motivation, considering your research question, those are fine. But then again, like with the planning, the part where you need to be very coherent and very systematic, it comes when you're actually planning how you conduct the work. I would be interested in asking, what kind of databases do you use generally for your work? When you need to look for research papers, which databases do you use?
Usually Google Scholar, and then just checking the bibliographies.
Right.
If I need to get really.
Okay.
Maybe in English it's PsycInfo. PsycInfo.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Eric and ProQuest.
Okay. Okay. Because that's, of course, it's a very important question. Like, where do you go for your research? When you want to review something, where do you retrieve what you will be looking at? Google Scholar is maybe, it contains a lot of not so academic works often, so with that you need to be quite critical often and consider very far, like, is this something that I actually should look at? But the others mentioned, sure, those are fine sources. I will talk a little bit of these, then I will show you some examples, and then we can actually look at some stuff with one database. Yeah, well, you need to define first of all your databases. Where will you look for the information? Our chosen database has often been Scopus by Elsevier, which is, at least they claim themselves as one of the most it's largest, most comprehensive like sources of databases of academic works. We have worked with that. It has been fine for us, but of course there are differences between different fields. But they include a lot of the other databases, so in that sense it's nice. But then the very tricky part, and this is of course a bit database specific, but determining how you actually search for the stuff that you're looking for. Crafting your search string. I will show you some examples about this. But that can be a lot of work, like determining very specifically what are the things on which I want to get information. How inclusive, how exclusive can I go with the string? And deciding on these parameters. Do I, for example, want only journal publications or also conference publications and those? I will also show you an example of those. And then deciding on what kind of studies do you actually include. For us, it has been often that we look at empirical works, but for example, you could be also including conceptual works or whatever. Here are two examples from our papers again. The first one is from the crowdsourcing, gamification crowdsourcing, and the second one, this is it the what do people play or buy?
Yeah, it's the one on
It's
sort
like-
of the technology acceptance of games.
Yeah, why do people play? Yeah, I didn't remember which one it is. Okay, yeah, it's that one. But this is a nice example. In both, Scopus has been used, as you can see. If you are a fast reader, you can check the both says that Scopus has been used. Okay, fine, we use Scopus a lot. But the interesting thing, these have very, very kind of different search queries that we have used. In the first one, it's super simple and super sleek, beautiful. Like, we looked at in the title abstract keywords if there was gamification or crowd something. And it's super sleek, very nice. You get the results with that. And it's easily, of course, repeatable, which is what you want from a research work, from scientific work. You want to be exact so that anyone can go and check the same. It's of course the basic idea between all kinds of research. But for the other one, as you can see, it's a lot longer. It was very well defined what kind of things were looked for. So there were many things that it had to be included, and a lot of these kind of different, how do you say, restrictions. So even, or like, how do you say, well, things what can be included in which fields or so on. And a lot of these limit something, so it was restricted in that way.
Perhaps I can sort of say
Yeah.
something about this because of course you were not even actually involved in that.
In
paper.
part,
So-
yeah, in that paper,
So-
yes.
So, for instance, in the second one, with the longer search string, so there's a lot of different derivations of games, basically. But the problem is that if you try to search anything, including the word game, you get like so many papers that just are not related to video games in any way. And it's completely impossible to go through tens of thousands of papers and look whether they are related to the subject matter you're interested in or not. And therefore we have specifically and explicitly defined in the search string many different sort of derivation of how the game can sort of be articulated in the paper. And that's why it's like that. But in addition to that, we've actually tried other keywords. So it's not always just about just deciding what the keywords will be, but it's also about testing like which keywords will bring up with what kind of results, and then sort of converging on a set of keywords that give you really the sort of realistic and full set of literature that you're interested in.
Yeah.
And with, for example, in the first one also like the use continuance, technology acceptance, technology adoption. So we were interested in specifically like why do people from the technology acceptance perspective basically use or play games. So
determines, on the last slide I mentioned, okay, the database, search string, parameters, and well, yeah, those. So the search strings, for example, they can be very, very nice short ones or very, very extensive complex ones. Also the parameters, title, abstract keywords, that's our chosen one. Usually that we use the metadata to look for the keywords in papers, and so on. But, well, yeah, the Scopus is there simply so that I remember that I'm actually going to show you something. But simply to give the idea how to be systematic with this is exactly this, that you plan well, that you document how you actually conduct the search, and even with these search strings, this is the super important part in the sense that, let's see if I, now if this doesn't work, then it's gonna be super embarrassing, but I have Scopus here, like, just out of curiosity, because in Finland, I try to preach always about Scopus. I should get paid by Elsevier probably for that. But how many of you use it? Like, okay, it's not maybe a main source, but how many of you use it? Okay, not many. Okay, yeah. So, there's one search that I did. But with Scopus, well, first of all, you can simply conduct these document searches very easily, very nicely. Just, you know, it's very clear in my opinion. But the nice thing is that you can conduct this with this. Oh, it doesn't look nice. Let's see if I need to. Maybe it works like this. That you can conduct. Well, let's see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, but it should work, because this is copied from Juho's paper. That okay, they conducted the review with this. I can show it here with this string, and they reported the paper. So of course that creates anyone the chance to go and test what they get with it. Please work. Yes. So I can go and repeat the search. Anyone can go and repeat the search, and that's how you definitely create this kind of a systematic way to conduct your review.
Yeah, and I think one of the major advantages of Scopus especially is that you can really sort of code the search string and use the or and terms and not
Yes.
terms and all that stuff, which is a lot more difficult in most databases.
Yeah, that's true. Because there won't be time. I will not go any further into those, but yeah. But you get the idea of how to work with this. And I would say that, for example, Scopus is very intuitive. But then you need to, of course, consider what you include, what you exclude. This is an example from the large work that we're currently doing. Basically, we're doing a revisit to the DAS gamification work, and we did again the search simply in Scopus on gamification. What do we get with that search term? And this was done a year ago, so last June, and paper still isn't out. We're doomed, I know. But last June, we did the search. We got 807 hits. Papers that said that they're about gamification, on gamification.
Yeah, so in a field that's growing so rapidly as this one, do you have any sort of deadline where you say, okay, any papers published after this date we don't include and that's it? Or do you try to constantly?
We did the search in June. That was the date when they had to be in Scopus. Like, we didn't include any that was put on Scopus after that. Of course, now when I do the same search, the number is doubled. And the paper is still not out. But no one else has done the work either, so we're still safe, you know? But, for example, this, we had 807 papers, which I have all personally went through to determine based on our criteria what we want. We look for the empirical papers, so we had to decide on what kind of papers we're including, what we're excluding, and go through all of them. And this is, for example, the kind of flow chart that we got as a result for that work. But then, okay, you have your data. Well, you have designed like how to gather your data. You get your data from whichever source that you're using. For us, for example, Scopus. Of course, the organization of the data and all that, it could be talked about for ages, but to go forward, we use this technique of putting the stuff on Excel, for example, or whatever kind of similar software. And in that, we basically craft the author-centric, concept-centric, start with this kind of a matrix that will be the end result, is that, for example, here, you can see there are each line, each row has a research paper on it. So we are first looking at the papers, at the results of the search in an author-centric way. Okay, in this paper, these authors wrote this and this and that. I will show you what this contains actually in a minute. But you have your data, you kind of like organize it in an author-centered way. Then you need to decide based on, well, you had your research question, you had your motivation, what is it that you're actually looking at? Define the variables that you're looking at. For us, it has been often, because we perceive gamification in this way, that there are the affordances, there are the outcomes, psychological and behavioral. So those are, for example, for us, these main variables that we're looking for. But how it actually looks in practice, I can show you quite quickly. This is now the super secret stuff, because this is the data that has not been published anywhere ever. I've been showing this a few times when I was talking for the 8 hours, for example, to students in Italy. I showed this to my students in Finland. So some privileged people have had a sneak peek of the data, but this is not published yet. This is super secret, and it's my year's work in this one, so feel privileged. But this is basically what it looks like. There is a huge Excel with, this one has 207, oh, it's still not, it's thin, 271 papers, well not because, 271 papers. For each of them, in this Excel file, we have defined, well, there are first like venue, blah, 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 this kind of information. But then, for example, data gathering method, what kind of data they actually use, their analysis method. These are all organized on the columns. Then there are, for example, the domain in which the work has been conducted. For example, education, crowdsourcing, whatever. There is what they have gamified, because that was what we are interested in. One of the things, what they are actually gamifying, in what context, what. Then we have been interested, of course, how they do it. So the affordances. We have here a column which has it's difficult to manage this with the. We have here a column where I have. This is the hard part. You have to do it by hand, by reading papers and coding the data. Code it for each paper, what kind of affordances they have used. And here is where it comes, let's see if I can open this. No? Should be. No? Did it go wrong? Oh, okay, it doesn't show it here. Let's see if I can show from, sorry, just a second. Yes, I can show you from here. this is where you can go actually kind of like quantitative in the way that was talked about before today, as for example for the affordances. Each of the papers has been coded with the 0, 1 thing, that do they have this certain affordance or not. I don't write the zeros because it would be so much, there are so many different kinds of affordances that I would have to be clicking 0 many times for each paper, but it's simply with the 1 and nothing that either the paper has something or it doesn't have something. So that's how you can go quite like quantitative with this analysis work. But basically the analysis is then that there's the author-centric analysis that you look for each paper. So by each author you looked at the different variables that you want to look for, and then the concept-centric analysis, which basically refers to, so this is the author-centric, what you see here, that there are the rows, and then the concept-centric, that from what you have gathered. For example, that we have looked for paper by Hamari, we looked at these variables here. We have that information from all. Then we can go concept-centric, that we take, for example, the affordances, and in how many papers, in which papers that has been studied. And the end result becomes like this. The tables that you saw, these are actually from the Does Gamification Work paper.
Yeah, those tables will be quite huge after that review is done.
I can show you that that's one of the things that I took here to show you. You get the sneak peek of the paper that is under work at the moment, which is here. The titles might still change, but you get the sneak peek. And I can share you the not published results yet. For example, this one, which is a very interesting one. So there were, in this one, 457 papers on gamification. And of those, 128 empirical papers are on education. 65 non-empirical papers on education, for example. Then there are health and exercise, very large category, crowdsourcing in the empirical ones. So this is upcoming. You are really getting secrets now. But as you can see, the tables, the tables become quite epic, to say the least, when you have a lot of data. This, for example, for the affordances, so the game elements implemented. Still, we can see the points, badges, leaderboards are leading how gamification is being implemented. Okay, I have only maybe one more slide. Okay, so then after all this, it's writing up the results. You have your beautiful tables with a lot of information. Then you of course need to draw some conclusions so it doesn't become the laundry list. You need to consider what was your motivation, what was your research question, how we can actually learn something from what has been gathered. How do we actually synthesize somehow this information? For us, it has been, of course, important simply to present that, okay, this many papers on gamification have been conducted in this kind of a context with these kind of elements and so on, because that's the stuff nobody has ever done. So for us, even that was very, very important research results. But depending on the topic, of course, it's mostly needed that you actually draw some conclusions and synthesize somehow the knowledge gained from the review. But basically, that was it. Our summary of the process. So the planning, careful planning, conducting searches, saving, organizing, documenting every single little detail that you do with your work. I can say please do that. If you're doing some review work, please document, because if I didn't have a ton of different kind of small pieces of information. At this point I did this, and this point that I did that. You can imagine with the 807 papers that I've been reviewing, I would be totally lost at this point. After a year, I cannot remember the decisions I made a year ago. So I have been documenting every single little detail, and that is saving my life at the moment. Then the author-centric analysis, defining your variables, gathering the information based on those variables. Then the concept-centric, analyzing the findings, drafting tables, drawing your conclusions, keeping in mind the limitations. So basically you can only report what you have been looking at. You can't go beyond that. Then there's some literature, what we based on based our work on, and our literature, our papers also. But that's it. Thank you.